Hello and thanks for staying with us. This is Focus Nigeria. My name is Aniagwu. It's just 85 days to the 2023 presidential election. The countdown is on. Before you could say Jack Robinson, the polling day will come before us. And so on our discuss today, we'll continue to take a look at the state of the race, how parties are campaigning, how they are doing consultations, and how they are deepening visitations, all in a bid to outsmart each other. We'll dwell on that on our discuss today from the perspectives of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and the Labour Party, LP. Now, the resource persons to do justice to that are two gentlemen, Charles Aniagwu. Charles Aniagwu is the spokesperson of the Atiku Co-op Presidential Campaign Organization, while Dele Farotimi speaks for the Obi Dati Presidential Campaign Organization. Before we meet them, let's quickly take you around the country to give you updates on trending stories. We told you earlier, parties continue with rallies. It was the turn of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Akure, Ondo State on Wednesday, when it made a stopover. Apart from the rally, some other events, consultations also took place, including visits to the palace of traditional rulers.
In the other party, both the president, the vice president, the party chairman are all Muslims. We don't believe that is a reflection of Nigeria. Is it? No. Is it? No. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is where I want to draw your attention. Don't go to your mosques or your churches and begin to preach on a religious vote. No religious vote will ever deliver any candidate. Muslims alone cannot make a president. Christians alone cannot make a president. We want to be in the Constitution. We want to be in the Constitution. We want to be recognized.
In response, Atiku Abubakar promised to consider the demand of the traditional ruler.
I was part of those who crafted the current constitution. And our argument was that if we included the traditional rulers in the constitution, if the military comes and they say, we have abolished all the institutions under this constitution, what happens to our traditional rulers? I don't see how the military can come into politics now and say they are taking over the government after a period of 22 consistent democratic culture in this country. The culture of democracy has been embedded in our life. Therefore, I believe it is a legitimate demand you are making.
Provide enough funding for education so that our universities can continue with their work. Not what the APC are doing today. Today, more than 8 months, our universities are closed. And simply because they don't care about their education, they don't care about their future.
The President Atiku Abubakar in 2023 has promised us that he's going to pay special attention to education. And we know he will do it.
Atiku Abubakar is one man that I believe has the capacity, the experience to restructure Nigeria.
We are here with just one message, that as PDP, wherever you see us, we have a message for Nigerians. And that message today is we want to recover Nigeria.
The return of PDP at the national level is the return of the PDP in Ondo State.
Now, since the introduction of the new Electoral Act that saw the advent of bimodal voter accreditation system and more especially electronic transfer of results, politicians have resorted to vote buying as a way of course, shoring up support on election day. Many expect that vote buying will be prevalent during the 2023 general election, except urgent steps are taken to nip that in the bud. This is also the view of Omoyele Sowore, the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress.
The people who you are expecting to end vote buying in Nigeria today are the ones buying votes. The second aspect, which is a misconception by some Nigerians, that you can actually collect money from politicians and not vote for them. Politicians are not stupid. They've already put in place strategies to ensure that if you don't vote for them, you pay heavily for it. So the solution is to remove this kind of characters from our political system.
Against the backdrop of increased attacks on INEC facilities across the nation, the Inter-Party Advisory Council, that's the umbrella body for all registered political parties in Nigeria, is expressing concern over the incident. And their concern is being raised at a time the chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakub, says the attacks may not frustrate or hinder the success of the election.
The unfolding events and reports coming from different parts of Nigeria during this campaign period have started to show wrong signals that party leaders and their officials are already acting irresponsibly and in violation of the peace accord. This ugly development also makes this summit absolutely necessary.
I must observe that the challenge before us is the practice whereby political parties try to include some of these objectives in their constitutions and manifestos.
More protests against the inclusion of underage voters in Nigeria's voters register. A coalition of civil society organizations is demanding that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, do more to clean up the register before elections in 2023.
The voter register is replete with massive underage persons, including persons that are below the age of 5. And of course, we have evidence to that effect, which you see here, right here. And then again, we saw there were multiple registrations that are bound in specific cases like in Wase local government area, Kanam local government area, Kanke, Jos North, and Sharabuntu in Riom local government area. We have, of course, evidence of that also here, which we also have submitted to the EOs in their very local government areas. Also, the INEC form EC3, which is directly concerned or connected to the grounds of objection and inclusion of names in a register of voters, has no provisions for objection based on double or multiple registration. Whereas the online version of the self-same form, which deals with the very issue, contains such. This is notable because the grounds of punitive sanctions under the provision of the Electoral Act 2022. We call on INEC to clean up voters register in Plateau State and of course in Nigeria as a whole, because if we could discover this in Plateau, there's a possibility that there are also such cases in other states across Nigeria. Now, while we applaud the technological advancement in the electoral process, INEC should find solution to creating a seamless process for PVC collection, as the present process is not as effective as required.
Or can we go to our discourse where we evaluate the presidential contest so far? Please do stay with us.
As the 2023
Thank you so much for staying with us. My guests join me now virtually via Zoom. Dele Farotimi joins us from Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us, while Charles Aniagwu also virtually from Asaba, Delta State. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Amici, and thanks for having us.
All right, let's start from Aniagwu. Bring us up to speed with your presidential campaign activities. There was a stopover in Akure, Ondo State yesterday.
Well, thank you very much, Amici. We have continued to reach out to Nigerians because, as the name of our party implies, People's Democratic Party, we do believe that the power resides with the people and that they are the sovereign. We do not believe that it's a question of it is my turn. And so what we are doing in the PDP is to reach out to those persons that have the power, and it's their own thinking to give it to whoever they wish or pleases. And that is why we have continued to interface with them. We were in Akure day before yesterday, yesterday, to interface with our brothers and sisters in that part of the country. Of course, you recall that we have been to a number of states, so our official campaign rally. We are not just holding town hall meetings, which of course is part of the engagement we have also adopted. And then in between, when we are not also having these official campaign rallies, we're also embarking on what we call mosquito campaigns. Our party organs across the length and breadth of the 74 local government areas in Nigeria are reaching out to the people in their different words to explain what Atiku Okowa will be bringing on board, the reforms that they are going to bring to bear with a view to recovering our country. And so we are quite comfortable with where we are. And we will continue, of course, to interface with different sectors. We are not only reaching out to the people where they live, we're also meeting with the captains of industry, meeting with individuals who hold sway at different levels of governance, and of course, who also have a very keen interest in different sectors. You recall not too long ago, we met with corporate Nigeria, where you have the likes of Dangote, the likes of Edumelu, the likes of Jim Ovia, and many others in that category, all with a view to first letting them into our economic programs, and also hear from them what they think we also need to do, because we do not believe that we know it all. And that is why at Atiku have continued to meet with different segments of society, whether they are Muslims, whether they are Christians, whether they are even pagans, or whoever they are, so long as they are Nigerians and we are seeking to govern them. We believe that interfacing with them and hearing from them will add value to what we have already put up in our campaign manifesto. Of course, let me remind you that our party was the first to come up with a manifesto of what we want to do. And we have also been able to outline a number of programs in that particular working document that will, of course, guide our processes. But this interface will also help us broaden the scope and indeed widen our approach to dealing with the many challenges that confront our country today, all with a view to recover our country for where we are.
Okay, let's bring in Dele Farotimi. Perhaps an opportunity for you to explain to us the business of Labour Party as far as the presidential campaign is concerned. How has it been so far?
It's not been, for us, it's not business as usual. Most of us we're having to learn to, you know, when the antelope births in the African plain, the baby must learn to run within minutes of his birth or he dies. You know, we are the ones that have no structures. We have no governors, no ministers. We have no big men. We were once upon a time even existing only on Twitter. So we are learning the rope every day, and we are trying our best to let our people understand that there is really no difference between the PDP and the APC. We are trying our best to let our people understand that they are the same, more or less, Siamese twins, and they have the same in store for the people. We don't have the structure that allows us to do, we are mosquitoes, let me just put it that way. We are already mosquitoes. We are constantly on the street. We're having town hall meetings, we're holding rallies. We're having maybe the more structured rallies, such as the one we had in Ibadan, where we were at Adamasingba Stadium, a continuation of which we should be seeing by next week, when I expect that we'll be in Ado-Ekiti and subsequently in Akure as well. So we are doing our best to let the Nigerian people understand that we are not a third force. We are in actual fact a second force, because what they would have imagined to be the first and second force, the PDP and the APC, are actually twins, one and the same. Whether you vote in an Atiku or you vote in Baba Emilokan, Mr. Asiwaju Tinubu, at the end of the day, you are getting more or less the same thing. Those who will be in APC today would happily jump to PDP tomorrow. But God forbid that we have such calamity befall us again. Our own intention as a party is to show Nigerians a different way to govern, to lead the people, provide them with leadership, not this consumptive system that has been engendered for the last 23 years and even beyond that, and where you've had principal persons who are asking today to come and perform miracles, being part and parcel of exactly what they are saying they want to come and fix. Mr. Peter Obi was in government for 8 years. His record in government is out there in the open for everybody to see. The only criticism I have heard of him, interestingly from Uncle Okowa, His Excellency in Delta, is that he saved money. That is the kind of person who is saying, look, I want to offer you a different type of leadership, a new way of doing things. Let the people be served, and let it not be that the people are the ones constantly serving the masters, which is what those who govern Nigeria have effectively become. So we are looking to move Nigeria from that mindset where you are constantly borrowing to eat, where you are spending the bulk of money on recurrent expenditure to maintain the rulers in style. We are trying to let them understand that this is not the way it should be, and we should focus on the development of our production capacity, unleash the creative industry and the capacities of the Nigerian people. And in the coming days, we'll see these in more concretized form in the form of the manifesto, which is imminently due for release. But the candidate himself has spoken to it on several levels, and he has spoken to how we have to restructure the country to make it more lean, more efficient, and in a way that focuses on delivering for the people instead of the rulers. He has spoken extensively to state policing. He has spoken to development of the infrastructure base of the country itself. He has spoken extensively to the need to cut waste and corruption. He has spoken extensively to the need to re-engineer the security architecture of the country, which has seen us effectively in a continuous civil war for almost 2 decades in one form or the other. Okay. Nigeria has been at war with itself. These are issues that need to be tackled. If we focus on agriculture and we don't have security for the farmers, what happens? Okay. Abandonment of the farms.
We'll come to the specifics. We'll come to the specifics later. Let's get in Charles Aniagwu here. Dele Farotimi says Peter Obi is different from the APC and PDP. To what extent is that true, and what different flavor is your candidate bringing into this campaign and, of course, the election?
Well, thank you very much, Amechi. You know, when my brothers talk about this issue of difference, they don't even really understand the issues, or maybe they think all of us were on holiday when Peter Obi was in Abga. He even swore that he would not leave Abga. Yet eventually he left power and abandoned Abga and jumped into the PDP. He was in PDP. He even got to the very high level of becoming the running mate of Atiku just in 2018-2019 election here. And March this year was when he left the PDP and now jumped into Labour Party. And yet he's talking about people who leave PDP and go to APC, or APC to PDP. Maybe those who have even moved between the two political parties, compared to his candidate, who even when he started in 2002, maybe he has forgotten, was not initially even in Abga. But that is not the issue. Now, in terms of saying that PDP and APC are the same, I think my brother Farotimi may have forgotten that PDP, when he came into power in 1998, when he came into power in 1999, of course, starting from the formation of the party in 1998, the party came in, bet a number of reforms. Amici, let me remind my brother what makes PDP quite distinct before even coming to the candidate, because the candidate of the party, Atiku Abubakar, was at the center of a number of things that the PDP achieved, particularly in the first 8 years of the return to democracy in our country. Let me remind him that the PDP midwifed a number of reforms, institutional reforms. It midwifed reforms in the banking sector, which of course we call banking consolidation. It midwifed reforms in the stock market. It midwifed reforms in terms of fighting corruption, and that led to the creation of 2 anti-corruption agencies, particularly the ICPC and then the EFCC. Not also forgetting the establishment of the Due Process Office, all with a view to curbing corruption. The PDP also midwifed reforms in pension, so that we're able to migrate from the old pension system to a new pension scheme that is much more digital. The PDP, beyond that, also midwife a number of reforms in the education sector and even in the maritime sector. All these different reforms were to make our country work better, but not also forgetting electoral reforms, which is why we are talking about now moving from where we were in 1999 to where we are today. And so these are the things that makes PDP unique. In the economic angle, my candidate has been able to put down a document, his manifesto, titled "My Covenant with Nigerians." His candidate at the moment does not even have a single document. He tells you that he speaks to this, he speaks to this. We are not just speaking to those issues. We have clearly outlined those issues. He also talked about a consumptive economy and then a manufacturing economy. And I laugh. Let him go and check all the businesses where his candidate holds sway. I need to remind him that next a supermarket or more, it belongs to his candidate. And to the best of my knowledge, that business has been very much involved in the importation of goods that have made it difficult for even Nigerian goods to thrive. And so when they talk about this, it's not talk is cheap. But in our own case, we have a candidate that has been into production for a very long time, and the companies are very well known. Beyond that, Amici, there are 5 thematic areas that our candidate have said he is going to be able to tackle the challenges confronting us today, and then recover our country for where we are. Starting from the issue of unity, of course, you know we are very heavily challenged today, to the extent that anybody who sees another person that speaks another language or belongs to another ethnic groups begin to have a sense of resentment, and at the end of the day do not want to identify with that person, even when that person is a Nigerian. Yesterday, we kickstarted the Delta 2022, where you have Nigerians from the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory converge on Asaba. You needed to see the love, the unity that exists. That is what Atiku Okowa want to bring back. He said on Kokowa, he called my boss, accused P2B of saving money. That was not the contest. That you were priding yourself of saving so much money. I'm happy, Amici, you are from Anambra. You know that even a number of people in Enugu cannot even feed. In my local language, they say you don't save the yam and the barn when your children are very hungry. It is good to save, but you must first of all tackle very serious challenges. The inner cities and towns in Anambra have been in the worst of shape. The markets have been in the worst of shape. And so when they come and pride themselves about saving, and in any case, save where? He saved those money in the banks where he had interest. Fidelity Bank is a case in point. A bank that was very, very sick at that time. He just, did he save that money? Put 1 billion today, put 2 billion tomorrow. You take as much as 25 billion. You put it in a bank where you have interest. You did not touch it because you want the bank to stay alive. And they keep telling us that the man saved money. They should not allow us go into those details because we believe that is not what Nigerians want to hear. We want to concentrate on what we want to do to make our country function and function for all of us.
Okay, Dele Farotimi, I expect some response from you, and also speak to the issue of from production to from consumption rather to production. How you intend to actualize that if you win the election?
The gentleman, Mr. Aniagwu, had a lot to say, and you must definitely offer me the opportunity to report. He brought the issue of character into issue. He's brought character into issue. And character is important, especially when you're asking for the highest office in Nigeria. I would refrain from speaking to anything that is not already in the public space and is not already established to be facts. So, since character is an issue, let us first of all deal with institutional reforms that is principal supposedly led. So today, we're talking about institutional reforms in the banking sector. And yet, that banking sector is incapable of lending to any idea, be that creative or anything, unless that loan is fully securitized. It is only structured for trading, nothing else. We're a capitalist economy, quote and unquote, where there is no capital available to anybody. But he's talking about institutional reforms in banking. I'm happy to let them wear it. The second thing he spoke about is institutional reform in corruption. I laugh. In a country where monkeys are swallowing money, the EFCC only ever chases around the young boys whom the elders have taught how to steal. But all the politicians who are busy stealing, they are promoted, they are in cabinet up and down the place. But the man is telling me about institutional reforms. You are talking about the transformation of thieves into saints in broad daylight, and you are talking to me about institutional reforms. Okay, we're talking about institutional reforms in the maritime sector. Is that the one that led to Intel, where your principal collabed one part of the Commonwealth? Is that the kind of institutional reforms we're talking about in the maritime sector? Look, let us be clear about something. My people have a proverb. They say, the plantain rots and we talk about is ripening. The reality on the ground is that they might paint the sepulchre all they want. But the PDP and the APC are exactly one and the same. They have conjoined together to take this country to where it is today. And now we are talking about candidates' business. Exactly what business does Mr. Atiku own, or does he do? The university that he got the license as a sitting vice president, the same one that is made in the controversy in the United States about how it was financed and paid for, the American license, is that the one we're talking about? Is that the business, or is it Intel? And then you talk about a man, you say he's importing. Your guy was a custom officer. If the man had imported something that was contraband at any point in time, it would have been impounded. So let's be very clear about something. He says sense of unity. What unity? The same one where a man who had been vice president of this country could not even hold a tweet condemning mob action that killed an innocent girl. He had the tweet deleted, and you are talking about sense of unity. The sense of unity that does not make him realize that he should cede the seat in the PDP to the South. Is that the one we are talking about? Please, save me that sense of unity. That sense of unity, and then you now speak about savings. I will not speak to the blackmail that you have raised related to whether money was kept in a sick bank, whether somebody had some interest there, because I know that if there was any substance to the accusation you have raised, we are not going to be having this discussion here. It would have been had in the office of the EFCC and the relevant authorities. So I'm not going to speak to that blackmail. But let's be very clear.
Okay.
The Nigerian people are not blind. They know the difference between light and darkness. We know as a fact that Mr. Peter Obi represents a different way of doing things. He's not a saint. We're not saying he's angel Michael. It is up to those of you who are his traducers to find the kind of evidence that you can stick on his back. But the fact remains that he is not your run-of-the-mill Nigerian politician. We're not saying he's a saint. We're not saying that he will be the cure-it-all, be-it-all. We all have to own the change that has to come. But Mr. Peter Obi cannot wear those garbs. It is actually very funny when I see representatives of either Mr. Atiku or Mr. Tinubu pointing accusing fingers at anybody. It does not lie in their mouth. It does not. They don't have the credibility for that. Don't let's even begin to do all this, please. Or is it Mr. Abbas or Joe's words do you want me to bring back?
Okay.
You want to hear Mr. Obasanjo's words?
Dele Farotimi, let's take a break and go for. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with the issues. Hopefully, we'll look at the plans, the programs for P2B. We hear of consumption to production for Atiku Abubakar. We hear of restructuring, unification of the country. Perhaps we'll stay more on this when we come back from the break. Do stay with us.
Did you know that AIT's social media handles have all changed? If you are one of the millions of our followers on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, this is introducing to you AIT's new official and rebranded social media handles. Like or follow us now on our Facebook page, Official AIT Live. If you're on Twitter, switch to our new handle at Official AIT Live and activate the notification button to get breaking news and updates on the go. For exclusive short videos and photo news, follow our Instagram account at Official AIT Live. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Official AIT Live, and enjoy live streaming of news and your favorite programs, where you can also watch our broadcast materials at your own convenience. Note that Official AIT Live is the only authentic social media profile name with all the handles on our website ait.live, with a notification prompt to accept and receive breaking news and updates on the go. Log on to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube platforms on your smartphone, tablet device, laptop, and desktop to follow us now. ait.live. On air, online, online.
Dele Farotimi has joined Charles Aniagwu, and we are looking at the 2023 presidential race. We are examining and assessing the contest, both as spokespersons, Charles Aniagwu of the PDP Presidential Campaign Organization and Dele Farotimi of the Labour Party. Charles Aniagwu, let's get to hear of the unification agenda and, of course, the restructuring agenda that you've been promoting.
Now, thank you very much. Of course, you do know that that is not the only agenda. That particular one you are talking about, I speak to two out of the 5 thematic areas. But in terms of unification, the desire of Atiku Abubakar and Senator Ifeanyi Okowa is to ensure that Nigerians begin to have a sense of belonging wherever they live or whatever they do. And how he seeks to achieve that is to ensure that when you have positions, for instance, like you have in the security agencies, that you cannot just have one religion or one particular geographical location producing the number of persons who sit at the Security Council of the Federation. That he's going to ensure that what he did, him and Obasanjo between 1999 and 2007, is to ensure that all segments of our society are very well represented. And that, of course, that will also cut across the different sectors, that for every position that is available, every part of our country will be given that sense of belonging, and you will see it that everybody has been given that sense of belonging. Atiku says you are not going to get a position just because you speak the same language with him or because you possibly profess the same religion with him. And I need to take you back to what he and Obasanjo did between 1999 and 2007, even if my brother doesn't want to agree with that. Atiku traveled to the World Bank while they were in search of how to secure debt buyback for the Nigerian economy. Of course, you recall that we were under a very huge debt burden at the time they took over. In the course of his discussion at the World Bank, he was reminded that there is a Nigerian who is very, very sound in that particular organization. And that was how they introduced him to Okonjo-Iweala. He returned to Nigeria and told his principal, Olusegun Obasanjo, that there is a Nigerian that had been shoot to him. And that Nigeria, the last time I checked, is from Delta State but married to somebody in the southeast. He's not from Adamawa. Atiku did not look at her as somebody who does not speak the same language, who does not belong to the same religion. Atiku told Obasanjo that was how they brought in Okonjo-Iweala to perform the many wonderful things they did. Perhaps my brother will also tell us that Okonjo-Iweala was not a good discovery. That same level of discovery was also what led to the discovery of the lives of Chukwuma Soludo, who was to perform creditably as a governor of Nigerian Central Bank. You also recall a man that I believe now is on sabbatical, that is Erufai, who also did very, very well in the Federal Capital Territory, and I believe in the course of time he will have to return to the PDP. My brother is saying that we are talking about institutional reforms, and he's trying to pick holes in those reforms. The candidate of the Labour Party up to this moment have not been able to put down what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. He only tells you this one is bad, this one is bad, and those are the things we already know. But for us, we are saying how we want to recover. And then coming to the issue of restructuring, Article says there are a number of things that we could do without even having to go to the law, which are things that you through policies, in which case you are able to devolve certain things to allow the states to perform in certain areas. But there are a number of areas where we need to tinker with the exclusive legislative list, where you have a whole lot of powers and responsibilities vested in the federal government as against devolving such to the state. A very good example is even the issue of the issue of power. For instance, for you to distribute power today, for you to transmit, the federal government is holding it. Article says it will be done in such a way that the states are able to come in not only through captive power, but also in such a way that you have an energy mix that allows people in the given region to become better with whatever they are going to be capable of producing. For instance, in the north, it will be very much easier to have both wind energy and solar energy, and that he will take advantage of. In the southern part, you could have other forms of energy, whether it is coal, that's thermal, or whether it's in the area of a hydro, that all those will be harnessed with a view to ensuring that even gas can come in, so that at the end we will have an energy mix that could take us up to 25,000 megawatts of electricity, at least by 2030. Now, coming before I yield the floor to my brother, coming also to the issue of the police. He says in the medium term, we will also need to cause an amendment of the constitution, getting the states, so that the states that are going to be able to fund their own state police will be allowed to do so, of course subject to certain supervision from the federal level, so that you do not begin to have individuals who may want to abuse that and then harass their brothers and sisters. All these have been very well outlined. Let my brother, who is speaking for the Labour Party, tell us one line that have been put down in what could be called a manifesto that Nigerians could see to say, okay, we are going to hold you to this. A man who is not able to develop a manifesto, just a simple manifesto, where you are supposed to come together and assemble the people, has not been able to do so. Do you know why he has not been able to do so, Amechi? Because he's running on a platform whose ideology is different from his own ideology. Obi believes in free market economy. The Labour Party is not a free market economy political party, because the Labour has given him their terms. He knows he cannot meet up with those terms. And developing a manifesto to be able to put in those terms that he's not speaking to will be a challenge. Developing a manifesto that does not also contain what the Labour asks him to will also be a challenge. And Mechi, that is why the Labour Party up to today, the candidates have not been able to develop a manifesto that Nigerians can relate to. So I yield the floor. Let me hear what he has to say, why they don't have a manifesto for Nigerians to know what they want to do. Talk is very cheap, and they have been very busy talking.
Okay, Dele Farotimi, I know you take up the challenge, but I want you to stay more on from consumption to production. We want to have the steps, we want to get to know the steps you take in actualizing this.
Mr. Aniagwu is apparently very well researched debater. Let me put it that way. You know, those times when we did school, I yield the floor. Here is the thing. Character matters. Anybody can say anything. They can write beautiful documents. Their records matters. Character matters. The person who is presenting the paper matters. If we are having ideological arguments within the Labour Party, and that is according to him what is delaying our manifesto, that should show you the level of intellectual rigor and arguments that are going into whatever we elect to present to the Nigerian people. I thank him very much for offering that kind of explanation. God bless him, even though it is none of his business. Thank you very much. But now let's deal with the specifics. Mr. Peter Obi has spoken to 7 key issues. And the first of those is about security. Security Nigeria, ending banditry and the insurgency. I want to speak to those specifics before coming but to speak to the many innuendos that my brother has again traveled to in the absence of character to back up their words. We're also looking to move to a production-centered economy. When I say production-centered, this is simple. If you have an economy that is currently structured in a manner that is meant to just extract value both from the people and from the land itself without adding any value to them, what you get constantly is the economy continues to collapse. Employment dwindles. The capacity to create employment, to create commerce is weakened. But when the government gets into the space in a manner that is business friendly, perhaps with the taxation regime, with the provision of infrastructure, you move the people easier to a production-minded economy. Let's think about when the GSM came. With the advent of GSM, a lot of things have happened. You and I are able to have this discussion. We don't have government in this space because telecom became liberalized. It is the same thinking. Let's take away the institutional basis for the development of poverty in Nigeria. The third one is restructuring of the policy. Like the gentleman has pointed out, this is not a process that can be decreed. Certain things can be policy driven, and Mr. Peter Obi has spoken to it. He spoke extensively to the issue of electricity, where he went as far as to say that bring any generating capacity, we would provide the infrastructure for you to be able to recoup your investment. In some cases, we will invest in your business so that you are able to provide power, because with the production of power, there will be a whole lot that would happen in the business environment. Small businesses can thrive. They can stop going to queue for petrol and all of that. We're talking about leapfrogging Nigeria into the fourth industrial revolution. It's simple. Look all around us. Every last thing that you see, including the textiles that we wear, everything is imported. Even stones. We import stones. We import all sorts of things because it's either the security situation is driving people to the urban centers, abandoning the centers of production, or the power situation is working to make sure that they are unable to do what they need to do, or it will be the security situation or the financial situation. So there is a concerted effort to build systems that would allow for the people to become industrialized. We're looking at youth engagement because, look, you are having functional illiterates coming out of the educational system. Look at the last 9 months. Cumulatively, this administration has overseen the most shutdown of the school system. So we're working to make sure that our program addresses this issue, raises issue of training beyond the formal education, vocational educational training. So these are the 7 points that we have already outlined. Yes, as my brother has said, we're having arguments, and that is to be expected when people intend to keep their words. We've not commissioned academics to go and write beautiful nonsense that we will not follow through on if we ever gain power. And this is to be expected. The Labour Party of today is not unlike the old NADECO. Different people looking to save Nigeria from the dire straits into which it has been pushed by Mr. Atiku and his co-travelers in APPDP, APC-PDP, or PDAPC. Yeah, that's their name. His co-travelers, where they have pushed us to, policies are important, but the mindset and the character to do the right thing is even more important. They can say anything they like. They've always said these things. They can write anything they like. They've always written these things, but they do not have the credibility or the character to deliver on any one of them.
Okay. Charles Aniagwu, in implementing restructuring, there are many of these issues border on the constitution, and issue of constitutional amendment will come into place. Perhaps what is needed is the will. So many have said, how would Atiku Abubakar and Ifeanyi Okowa invent the will to get that national consensus to see many of the contentious issues that border on restructuring through when they go into power by way of constitutional amendment?
Well, thank you very much, Amechi. I must commend my brother for reminding me about the GSM revolution. And the last time I checked, Atiku and Obasanjo were the one that brought that revolution. And I'm happy he's enjoying that revolution. So maybe that is the character he's talking about. Atiku has the character to make things happen, and things happen positively. There are many of them that I can relate with, and he knows. So when they talk about character, I don't know which other mirror they use in presenting this character. But the character I see in Atiku is that character that he used in identifying Okonjo Iweala, who is not from Adamawa and who is not a Muslim. That same character he used in identifying Chukwuma Soludo, who the last time I checked is from Anambra State. That same character to be able to understand that a man who can do the job should be given that responsibility to do the job. Even when National Assembly didn't want to take on Erufai because they believed that Erufai was too hard as the chairman of the Bureau of Public Enterprises, Atiku pleaded with them that it's important you bring in Erufai because he has the ability to make things happen. And Amechi, you do know, between 2004 and 2007, you know that indeed Erufai made things to happen in the Federal Capital Territory, where today a number of Nigerians are enjoying themselves on account of that revolution that he brought to bear. And we are continuing to plead with him to come back home. They're in that party where he was able to excel. So if he talks about character, I believe that Atiku's character speaks to the need to bring Nigerians together, speaks to the need to revolutionize a number of sectors, in which case he has identified one of them, which is the telecom sector. And I do know that he's enjoying that particular character of Atiku. Now, leaving the issue of the character to the questions you asked as to how we are going to build some form of consensus. Atiku has started building that consensus through what you are seeing already. For instance, you reported earlier in the course of this interaction that Atiku was not only in Ondo State to just hold a rally, that there was an interactive session which you may call some stakeholders engagement before that particular rally. In the course of stakeholders engagement, you are able to begin to build consensus around issues so that at the end of the day, Atiku is that man that you call a positive deal breaker. He is going to be able to talk to different aspects of our society. For instance, in the issue of policing, he says any state that is going to be capable of funding state police, they are not just going to force every state. Any state that is going to be capable of funding state police, after that amendment, that state will be allowed to do so. But of course, like I said earlier, with some form of supervision from the federal authorities so that you don't have issues of abuse of forces at the state level. Then, Atiku have also said that in bringing reforms, just like he has done with Obasanjo in the first 8 years of this democracy, and I know my brother Dele can relate to them, those reforms that made it possible for us to, for instance, create the NDDC, maybe he has forgotten that they remember that the people in the Niger Delta needed to be taken care of. And that was how they were able to build consensus around this country for us to be able to have an agency such as the NDDC. Atiku has always been somebody who crossed the aisle, even in the National Assembly. He reaches out to members of the opposition, even as he continues to interface with members of his own political party, because he believes that that way you are able to build a consensus. Let me now remind him, because he talked about what Obasanjo said about Atiku. Let me remind him, because I know he knows, that because Atiku was so inclusive in his approach, many governors in 2002 had already approached him that he should go and contest against his boss. And Atiku said no. And Amechi, I am happy at that time you were reporting the villa. You know the story I'm talking about. Atiku said no, that the man found him worthy to pick him as a vice president, that he cannot run against him. At the end of the day, both of them ran that election. But because Obasanjo felt that Atiku was already enjoying too much acceptance among governors, even more than him, that got him angry. Now again, when Obasanjo wanted to come up with the issue of the third term, if you remember, Atiku said, no, this is not democratic. Okay. That we cannot do that. You also need to remember that Atiku was among those that fought Abacha. To leave the office, he took the risk of fighting Abacha under democratic governance. And I know my brother Dele can also relate to that. Okay. That is the character of Atiku we are talking about. I wouldn't know the other character he's talking about. Okay. Maybe he needs to mention it so that we can relate to it. Okay. But I can tell you, let's quickly that Atiku is somebody who has the capacity at all time to build consensus, reach out to individuals, irrespective of their ethnic inclination, irrespective of their religious background, and of course, cutting across the geographical divide. So at the end of the day, you begin to have the buy-in of a number of persons for the purpose of getting us to where we are. In any case, most Nigerians are already on the same page with respect to the need for some of these powers to be devolved to the states. So building a consensus. Okay,
just Aniagwu, we will have to pause here now. Let's pause here now and take some of our tweets. Ostino says he wants to find out from the Obi spokesperson why Peter Obi agreed to indeed become running mate to Atiku Abubakar in 2019 election. If he's Mr. Integrity, he wants to know why he did that. Then Olufemi says it does not agree with the statement here that the National Security Council is constituted with people from one political ethnic background or religion. He disagrees with that. Now, Comrade Dominion says, I think the PDP candidate and his running mate have no moral justification to be talking of unity in Nigeria, because he says there's disunity in their party. Sebastian says, the two guests are great individuals, and I commend them for inspiring words politically. But Bash Kanabe says, savings is not bad ideally. One need to save at least 10% of what he earns, irrespective of what you do for precautions. One more. Okay, let's just end there. Dele Farotimi, your perhaps as your final statement, your candidate is also speaking of blocking leakages as a way of ensuring that the much needed capital to invest in critical sectors are harnessed. Maybe you want to speak to that.
Well, I do want to speak to that, and just one small reaction to what Mr. Aniagwu has had to say, particularly his strenuous effort at deodorizing what I consider a skunk. Let me say this. Character matters. There is a gentleman, once upon a time a senator, I believe, or was a congressman. His name is Jefferson. Perhaps he will want to speak to that at some point. And when you speak about Obasanjo's account of his time with your principal, well, you might selectively elect to read that book, but I'll let Obasanjo's words continue to speak for himself. And your version of that story in 2002, I'll let Obasanjo tell his own story in his own words in his book. But let's deal with the issue of blocking wastage. You and I are living witnesses. We saw what transpired in the National Assembly. People fainting. There's a gentleman, Mr. Ponde, was busy fainting in the National Assembly. They were busy offering mic. He was there in open daylight. We could all see the fact that the National Assembly was a place where contracts were distributed from the NDDC. It was clear for all to see. Was that the end? Yeah, it was clear for all to see. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. The amount of waste. I think the other day the NNPC was supposed to have spent God knows how many billions on recharge cards. The kind of waste that you see in Nigeria is humongous, is mind-blowing. The one thing that it would appear that myself and Mr. Aniagwu would have agreed on was his closing statement. No matter, even if it's just for the sake of rhetoric, whether you are an Emiloko or an Etiku person, whoever you are, every Nigerian appears to agree that we have to do something drastic about our situation with restructuring. And in restructuring Nigeria, you also get to plug a whole lot of waste. There are so many places where we are leaking money left, right, and center. So many MDAs that have no business, ministries, duplications of all sorts. We're spending more to maintain people in power than to service the people they are meant to be serving. So it's not rocket science, really, to go about the business of cutting the waste. The OSIA report has been gathering dust for years. Okay. It's not like it's not as if they don't know what to do. What is meant to be done is clear to those who are meant to do it, but it is the political will that has been missing for a long time. Okay. Because
I'm afraid, Mr. Dele Farotimi, we'll have to end it here. We are already out of time. I must thank two of you for joining us today and joining issues with each other. More importantly, putting your plans, the plans of your candidates have for the country if they win elections on the table. Thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you, Amici.
And that's it for today. Thank you also for being part of it. The discussion continues on our Twitter feed. There's a lot of interaction going on there. Perhaps we'll continue along that path. My name is Amechi Anakwe. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a good time.